The opinions expressed on the X and Y Show are the sole opinions of the host. Please note, there is no intentional desire to offend any member of the listening audience. With that said, if you still feel offended, tough shit.
It's time for the X and Y Show with your host, Mr. Roosevelt. He talks about man topics, lady topics, and relationships. He talks about love, sex, and infidelities. He even gives good tips. There is no other show that compares to the X and Y Show.
Oh yeah. Sit back, take your clothes off, and relax. It's time for the X and Y Show, where real relationship issues are talked about and addressed. The only place on the planet that tackles the topics that everyone wants to talk about, but no one is brave enough to address. Nothing escapes X and Y, baby. Now, here's your host, Roosevelt Colbert.
Good evening, X and Yers. This is Roosevelt, and I have a treat for you this evening. I'm speaking to a real sex therapist. So this is a person that's actually licensed. I know you get a lot of your information from me. I'm not a sex therapist, even though I'm very knowledgeable on the subject. But this person is actually licensed. Her name is Paige Bond. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in helping people-pleasing millennials navigate non-monogamy so they can tame their jealousy and love with ease. So I want you to welcome Paige Bond.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Roosevelt. I do want to make one small correction. While I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I do specialize in a lot of sexual issues, there's actually a difference between becoming a certified sex therapist and seeing sexual issues. And I am not a licensed sex therapist, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Oh, okay. I apologize for that. I'm jumping the gun. I just put
no worries.
Together. I'm glad you cleared that up. Thank you very much. So, so exactly, could you elaborate on that a little bit? You're with that. Are you encouraging people in relationships to fuck other people, or are you helping them deal with being cheated on? Because being cheated on is inevitable. You're going to get cheated on. Which one do you really point to?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few different things that I do in this line of work, helping specifically non-monogamous relationships. Some people can call consensual non-monogamy or ethical non-monogamy. Sometimes they may call it ethical cheating. There's a difference between cheating, which is lying or withholding information to a partner or from a partner, and consensually getting, essentially their consent to pursue outside relationships, outside the couplehood. And so that's what non-monogamy is, having more than two people involved in some sort of relationship, whether that's a physical act, an emotional act, or having even fantasies or porn or audio erotica brought into their relationship. That's done with the consent of all parties involved. As far as my role, I don't encourage people to do the fucking other people, only if they want to. I don't want to make people choose one way or another or coerce them to one side or another. A lot of people have a misunderstanding that because I specialize in non-monogamy, that means I'm trying to change the world and convince everybody to be non-monogamous. And that's just, essentially not what works for everybody. And what my role is to help people who are either struggling in their relationship, navigating non-monogamy, whether it's for jealousy reasons, whether it's they're trying to decide if non-monogamy is for them or not, or just find out how to really be okay with maybe certain adjustment changes within a non-monogamous agreement.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. Now, me personally, now I know to each his own, and I interviewed swingers before in the past, and some of the things that we talked about, I know that that's something that I could never be. I could never share someone with with someone else. And I'm not knocking people that do. I'm not saying that they're crazy as hell. I'm not saying those people are evil. I'm not saying that. That's their thing. Do you? But for me, I know that's something that I could never do, and for a myriad of reasons. But me personally, I believe that complicates things even more. I guess I'm a traditionalist. I'm the one before millennial, so I'm a Gen X. So I believe in, the traditional, you get a girlfriend, you court her, you marry her, you have kids, and put up the fence, and have 2 dogs, and you get old. So I think when you bring in other people, that complicates things. And when I say that, I'm saying that you might get treated better by the other woman or the other man or whatever. It might cause you to leave the other man and go to the extra fucking guy or extra fucking woman. So it's just too much emotions, and not counting the physical aspects, the STDs possibility, right? The other aspect of the other person maybe getting jealous, and you having this 3 triangle, all this bullshit. So I think that complicates things. I don't understand how a couple could say, well, we're having trouble. Let's bring somebody else in and fuck somebody else, or go date somebody else, or whatever. So what would, I know every couple is different, but how does a couple get to that point where there is they're striving for something so much more or so much different that they're willing to bring someone else in their circle or relationship that, to me, is supposed to be an intimate circle between 2 people. And when you bring in more than 2 people, I think that just, complicates things. So what brings people normally to that point?
Yeah, I'm sitting here nodding my head. You can't see me, but as you're talking about how it complicates things, you're right there. When you add in another relational dynamic to anything, there's going to be more feelings involved. There's going to be more decision making involved, and a lot more effort in very good communication. And some of the reasons that people may choose to open their relationship, like you said, it could be to maybe outsource or find another experience with someone else because maybe they aren't satisfied in the relationship. And sometimes people open their relationships as a Band-Aid on their marriage, or like they're trying to save it, similar to how sometimes people have babies to save their relationships. They think that will get the other person to stay. And that, again, can often complicate things, with that not being really a genuine reason of something that would add to the relationship. What is more helpful is when both people, starting from a couple relationship, are on board and consenting and willing and wanting to. And some reasons that may happen could be for exploring their sexuality. Maybe at one point in the relationship, they had identified as, heterosexual, and maybe come some time after, they find that they wanted to explore maybe a side of them that's bi-curious, or maybe they find that they're pansexual. And so exploring outside relationships outside of their couple gives them that opportunity to feel more aligned with who they are and how they want to express themselves in life so that they feel fulfilled. And I think that's one of the most beautiful reasons and encouraging reasons for people to go that route of non-monogamy. Another reason could be simply, wanting variety in their life. That could be outsourcing maybe certain sexual acts or maybe sex altogether because of a mismatch of desire and libidos between two partners, and maybe the partner who is not so interested in sex is totally on board and encouraging of their other partner seeking that fulfillment elsewhere. And they're, fully consenting to that process. Or maybe there's a certain sexual act, like something kinky or something like a BDSM scene that a partner is not interested in, but they give full consent for their other partner to go explore that with someone else because they know that would be fulfilling for them. So there's many reasons, whether it's for the reason of sex or emotional bonding or simply wanting to say fuck you to society, and how we have that, standard relationship escalator of, you get together, you start dating, you do the engagement, moving in, marriage and kids. Some people don't really want that out of their life, and they want a relational aspect that's diverse. So those are some reasons.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. And I totally agree. And I believe that the new generation, like the millennials and the ones that come after them, and some Gen X's too, I believe that it's all a cycle, meaning that I think that the world is more fucked up because we have lost our way to the traditional family. I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but, I feel that the world was better when it was mom and dad in the home, we had, you raised, like the Beaver family, you always had the two-parent household, and people actually believed in marriage or the idea of marriage. And now, it's like you say, a lot of people out of the younger generations, the millennials and the ones that come after that, the Yers and Zers and stuff, they don't want to get married. They just want to have a relationship and they just want to date and just be with multiple people without actually settling down and with one person. And I think that that's why society is so fucked up, because you don't have a basis. You don't have the traditional family anymore. So I say that to say this. Do you believe that the traditional quote-unquote family, or, the mom and the dad and people actually getting married, do you actually think that it is dead and it will never return? Or do you think that there's special, there's certain traits that it's decreasing, but it will never die? And I know you're not you can't read the future or nothing, but you talk to a lot of people, and get their, you communicate with people on a daily basis or weekly basis. So you have a foot on the ground of what's going on. So what is your notion of how people are, thinking about the traditional marriage? Do you believe that it's something that will never come back like it was in the Beaver years? Or do you believe that it's just a temporary thing that we're going through and the traditional family will return?
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point about, the traditional marriage that, we grew up with as this idea, as a society, definitely has changed over time. And there are a multitude of reasons, right? Part of that is people are exploring more about themselves and coming into finding what they desire in a relationship. And maybe they don't want to be tied to, a certain piece of paper, but they explore commitments in other ways. Or, I also like to argue the point that, when we think of that traditional marriage, if you're thinking about a heterosexual two-person marriage, a lot of marriages either end in divorce, and a lot of marriages also have aspects of cheating with them. And I think that's another reason to really look at, what is it that is causing that desire for cheating? Is it wanting to explore other relationships and you don't have the words and know how to bring that up to your partner? Or is it a way to exit the relationship and, now things get a lot more complicated, or some other reason? And as far as, thinking about what the future holds for the evolution of marriage, I think it's just going to continue to change over time. I don't really know what to expect in the future. I do think that it is harder to be married in today's society. It's getting harder and harder, especially for more diverse relationships, especially anyone outside the cisgender hetero, type of couple. At least here in the United States, with governmental policies being implemented, against the LGBTQ community, and not really affirming of other types of relational structures, it's getting really difficult, because there are plenty of people who are polyamorous or non-monogamous who would really love to have the benefits of marriage at times, but simply the government is not on board with that here in the U.S. What I do think, though, is that a lot of the same values align, whether it's, thinking of a two-person hetero marriage or something more diverse outside of that in non-monogamy. All relationships that I see have the internal core desires of wanting a committed and secure relationship with the people they love, and having a really safe connection to, hold. And so I don't think that's going to change for the future. I think people are still going to be wanting the same things at its core, but how it gets played out will definitely be different. And I think another factor to consider is, the freaking economy. Like, it's very expensive to get married. There are some pros and there are some cons to getting married as well. So, and I know, you mentioned the younger generations, they are looking at what their options are. And, because I've spoken to a lot of people, who are millennials or younger, they don't see that as a dream or a possibility for them because they're too focused on just trying to survive. So the economic crisis is definitely impacting, what we used to see as a traditional marriage.
Wow. So basically people can't afford to get married.
No, not usually.
Wow, that's really sad. And yeah, you're absolutely right, because I've done some research on it, and it's very expensive. So I can definitely understand it. And that's not even counting the, if you want to go on a honeymoon or the wedding bands and all that kind of stuff. So it can get expensive really quick.
Right.
Now, you mentioned cheating. Now, that's one of the things, me personally, this is one of my greatest fears. That's why I've never been married, because I fear the only thing that would cause me to cheat is withholding of assets. And when I say withholding of assets, I mean, my wife not giving me any pussy, right? For a very long time. I've known guys who have not had sex with their wives for 2 years, 4 years. I know one guy with 6 years, he haven't had sex with his wife. And I was like, that shit scares me to death. And that was something that definitely would make me cheat. Or get a divorce even. That's something I can't handle. And I'm not saying that pussy is the most important thing in a marriage. It's not, right? There's other things. There's love, companionship, companionship, and but it is up there. It's in the top 5 for definitely. I don't know, for everybody, but it's in the top 5 definitely for me. Okay, so if I have a wife that's saying, she's mad and that I didn't do something, or she wants to move to another state, and I'm not moving, and so she gets mad and stop having sex with me. That's a problem. And I think that a lot of marriages, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying a lot of them are stemming from that simple thing. Because when a man is not being fulfilled at home, he's going to venture out and get that somewhere else. And so I don't understand why women use that as, it's okay to be mad 1 or 2 days, but 2 years, 3 years, that's torture. So I don't understand why a lot of women use that route. It's okay to use that, but I think a lot of women go too far. And I think that is the issue with so many divorces. Guys are getting, squeezed and not getting pussy, and they look other places, or whatever it is. It could be companionship or communication, a better interaction with a female human being, and they find that somewhere else. And since they're not getting something at home, they go out some and get it somewhere else. So I believe that's where a lot of it starts. Usually women have the power to control that. In my opinion, this is not a proven thing, but I believe that women are the cause of a lot of guys. I know you probably smirking right now, but they are the cause of a lot of guys looking other places, and beginning to cheat, and that's why you end up with divorce. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I would like to challenge you in that, I don't know about the women but I'm not a mind controller, and I've never met anyone who is a mind controller. And so I would like to challenge you in that I don't think it's women making men cheat. Men have a choice.
Right.
And this is...
Well, it's not making them, but it's the cause.
There's a stressor in the relationship, so in this scenario, talking about a heterosexual couple, husband and wife, where maybe there has been a lack of sex in the relationship, the husband's upset, and maybe the wife is at times, speaking to your scenario, thinking, sure, maybe that could be a manipulation tactic, right? Maybe she wants certain things done around the house, or helping with childcare, or whatever it may be. And there are times where people may use that as a manipulation tactic and withhold sex. But withholding sex does the most important thing about a sexual interaction is that it's consensual, right? We want to have all parties involved actually wanting to do what the sexual act is. And granted, there are at times where not everybody's in the same mood at the same time, or looking for that at the same time. And there could be so many reasons for that. It could be maybe physical health issues. It could be medication issues. It could be emotional disconnection between the couple, right? And so there are a lot of things that could be swept under the rug and not really addressed. And the couple can suffer when that happens. And yes, some people do go out and cheat because maybe they're not getting their sexual cup filled enough, right? And needing or saying that they need to find that elsewhere, or wanting to, just find some other way to get that fulfilled. And so they make the choice to do that. It is their responsibility to hold up their end of the bargain of whatever agreement that they talked about, whatever fidelity meant to the couple. when they first got together or not. Some people don't even talk about what fidelity means to them. And so sometimes, someone will go out and cheat with the assumption that maybe it was okay because maybe fidelity wasn't ever talked about in their marriage. And so while we don't want to make excuses for the person who's going out and cheating, we also don't want to have the person left behind not recognize maybe what role they played in that, right? And so maybe it's also the person who's not on board with sex and the person who was cheated on. Maybe they were playing a role in not communicating about the issue, just like the outside partner who went and cheated, not communicating about the issue, right? So that's two people contributing to the same problem, neither of them doing anything, right? So the cheating is the symptom of the larger problem at home. That's what I believe.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I can get on board with that. And I think that a lot of that could be corrected with simple communication, so couples have to communicate, but believe it or not, that is very difficult sometimes, simple talking to each other. So it's not easy for all couples as it is for some. So I think that, since couples are not communicating, that's when you have things happening. Misunderstandings and,
I agree.
So that's when, other extra things beyond the marriage begin to happen, which is, that's unfortunate. Because I wouldn't cheat on my wife, but I must admit that would definitely, I would communicate with her, and, if it's still not going right, something has to give. We can't stay at this point.
Right. Yeah, communication is very important, and problem solving, if that's not happening throughout, these discussions that partners may bring up, then that may come to a place in the road where you may have to decide to end the relationship or see if non-monogamy could be an option so that you can get that part of yourself fulfilled. There's so many options out there. People are just afraid to either have the discussions because of maybe anxiety about what could happen to the relationship if they have that conversation. But I think you're spot on there that people don't usually have good communication skills or communicate enough, especially about these issues like that.
Agreed. Now, you also the creator of the Jealousy to Joy journey that leads to 5 destinations so you can stop feeling insecure and get the relationship you want. What are the 5? What is that about? What are the 5 destinations of the Joy journey?
Yeah, so I created the Jealousy to Joy journey to really be an exploration for people to find out what's making them tick as far as producing the insecurities in the relationship and really give a good assessment of their relational style. So I'll talk a little bit about each of the journeys. So the first part is talking about consideration, and that really helps you review past relationship patterns, maybe even childhood wounds, things that were working in the past and didn't work, and maybe some unhelpful things that people are now seeing in maybe their current relationship repeating again and again. And so I think the first problem that a lot of people have is maybe a lack of awareness of what this is or what unhelpful patterns are. And so we really use that first part of the process to do a lot of consideration for taking inventory of what those patterns are, and then taking consideration for what kind of relationship they would like to have. How do you design what kind of relationship you want, whether that is in a monogamous one or a non-monogamous one? Oftentimes when people get presented with the idea of, hey, partner says they want to open the relationship, the partner listening to that might just jump on board out of fear that they're going to lose the relationship without really taking an inventory whether they might actually want a non-monogamous relationship or not. So we do a lot of talking about really trying to find what they truly want. The next stop on the journey is compassion and really learning how to have self-compassion and compassion for others. And so that is essentially just taking kindness and care into treating yourself well, even in really difficult situations. We all have a critical side that kind of gets in the back of our mind and maybe tells us really unhelpful messages, negative beliefs like we're not good enough or that maybe someone else is better. And so that self-compassion piece is really take a more observing role of that and being much kinder to yourself and to others. Okay. The next part of the journey is really comfort. And so this is where we provide soothing. And this goes for being able to soothe yourself and calm yourself down and help your partner learn how to do that with you. How can your partner calm you down? One of my favorite psychologists that I follow talks about being experts on each other. His name is Stan Tatkin. And he really promotes really knowing your partner inside and out, knowing what their triggers are and then knowing what helps those triggers get a lot smaller and knowing what to do and what not to do. So that part is really just taking care of yourself and taking care of your partner, which not too many people actually have like a roadmap to do. So that's really important to have in a relationship. The next journey is communication. Like we've already talked about, such an important aspect of relationships. As far as verbal communication, also reading body cues, understanding what role memory has in communication, because a lot of fights happen because of memory issues, like we misremember things. Or we have a memory of something and that can cause us to feel a certain way. So maybe something negative happened with my partner in the past and maybe we never resolved it. Let's say another situation similar to that happened again. Now I'm going to view my partner even more negatively now that that's kind of building up on each other. So we talk a lot about communicating and then repairing when things don't go well. That's essential to relationship surviving, is learning how to apologize and make amends for sure.
All right.
Yeah. And then the last part of the journey, and this may be applicable to people who decide to move forward in their non-monogamy journey, or it's just good information to know. And so this last one is called compersion. And compersion is essentially being able to feel happiness for your partner, getting a source of happiness that is not from you. So let's say my partner goes to the ball game and I don't really like baseball, so I'm staying home. I'm so excited that they get to go to the ball game. When they come back, I ask them how it was. I feel joyful seeing their smile on the face after they got to see their team win. That's me feeling joy for my partner when I had nothing to do with it. And so compersion in non-monogamous relationships is essentially the same concept, where, and I know this might be hard for some people to grasp, but some people either are there or want to get to the point where maybe their partner comes home from a date and they had a really good time and the partner left back at home. They feel super excited for them and actually feel joy that they had their date and wants to know about it and is enthusiastic for them. And that's what compersion is. It's being able to separate yourself and allow yourself to not have to be your partner's only source of happiness. It's allowing them to be expansive in other areas. And that's the jealousy to joy journey.
Okay, that's very interesting. The 5 C's. So that's like a process to help you not just jump into it. It's like a roadmap almost, kind of, it sounds like.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's very interesting. Okay. Now, Paige, I have to ask you now, do you have any experience with a non-monogamous relationship, and so you can give like a personal experience when you're talking to your clients?
Yeah, so I do share my story that I have had a partner in the past that I'm no longer with anymore bring up the idea of opening our relationship. And this was actually something that I struggled with a lot when they brought that up to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a lot of talks about boundaries, what we were comfortable with, what we were not comfortable with. I struggled a lot with jealousy. I struggled a lot with insecurity. While there were parts of myself that were really excited and wanted to explore because I was curious, there were also a lot of parts of me that struggled with self-worth, but also struggled with being able to verbalize what I actually wanted, and not sure how to bring that up to my partner. And so I wouldn't really let him in on what was going on for me, and it would just come out in big emotional bursts. So that was not successful, and that relationship had ended for reasons other than that. And then I had some other experiences, in my life where they were actually really successful non-monogamous experiences. And what I've come down to is I am actually practicing monogamy with my partner, who also practices monogamy with me. Again, I really love working with this population, but I've decided that this isn't something that I need for myself to feel fulfilled.
Okay. So you basically find that that's not for you, basically.
Correct.
Okay. And that's understandable. I totally get that. So, because I know that, I don't think I could, although I must admit, I'm not going to lie. If my girlfriend said, I have this girlfriend who wants to, do things with us, yeah, I'm curious about that, just from a sexual point of view. But for long term, like I said earlier, I think that, bringing someone else in the triangle just complicates things. I mean, it's already hard enough with two people, and you're bringing in a whole nother set of, emotions and interactions with someone, a whole nother entity. And, it's just a recipe that could, explode. And so, I know that's not for me, but, that's pretty cool that you actually did that. And so you practice what you preach. You've actually experienced it, so you can give even more personal experience with your clients. So I'm sure that they appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that just gives them, something to hold on to of there's so many different ways to design your relationship, and there's not just one exact template to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I hope, is that it just gives them a little bit of knowledge and awareness that they can design the relationship whatever suits them, whatever they're looking for. And I commend you for your own self-awareness of knowing, maybe an idea or in theory, it sounds maybe exciting at one point or maybe as a short-term thing, but long-term, I know that may not work out for me. And so that's really great self-awareness, and I commend you for that.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thank you for chatting with me, Paige. Now, give me some things where people can find you. You have a website, a podcast, your social media. Give me all of that.
Yeah, so everybody can find me on my website at paigebond.com. And I've actually got a couple of free resources there, a free jealousy workbook and a free people-pleasing workbook. So they can either grab those free resources. They can also find me on social media with the handle at Paige Bond Coaching, or find me on my podcast. and the podcast is on all streaming platforms. It's called Stubborn Love. And I like to talk about just all kinds of different various relationship topics, whether, it's talking about non-monogamy or just talking about reconnecting. I like to give actionable tips and tools in every single episode that can help you enhance your relationship on the Stubborn Love podcast.
Cool. Now, is that a weekly podcast, or what do you do, daily, or what is that?
I would say it's a weekly-ish podcast. It's really up to my discretion when I release them. So ideally it's weekly, but sometimes it's a little bit more inconsistent than that.
Yeah, I can dig that. Okay. All righty. So I will definitely put links to that as well on this episode, so people can find your website and your podcast as well, so they can reach out to you and take a view of your website and take a listen to your podcast and check you out.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Roosevelt, for having me on.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and we'll talk some other time in the future. I really appreciate it. You have a good night.
You too. Bye.
You've been listening to The X and Y Show with your host, Roosevelt Colbert, the place where real relationship issues are talked about and addressed. Join us next time. You can now put your clothes back on, or not.